Happy Monday and happy 2026, because at least this is the first episode that me and Lorna is recording this side of the year. Lorna, welcome. Welcome to 2026. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Other than the fact I caught the winter lurgy, so please excuse my voice and my snotty nose. But other than that, I am good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, making it happen as always. Hanging in there. There's not an option not to do it. So whatever the conditions, whatever in sickness and in health, or whatever they
Get
say.
it done.
Get it done. Yeah, super committed. No, I'm really excited to kick off another year with podcasts. I can't believe it. It's been so many. This is episode number 219, Lorna. Can you even fathom that?
That's
awesome.
awesome.
It's absolutely absurd. But really excited to kick off another year on the podcast. If this is the first episode that you're listening to, then make sure you hit the follow button so you don't miss out on any of our future episodes. We have so many exciting topics that we're going to cover this year together. So do make sure you follow the show. And if you've been around for a while, then make sure you sign up to receive our weekly mindset and performance hacks. Those are emails delivered to your inbox on a weekly basis. They are containing kind of similar tips that we deliver inside of this podcast, but you get them in written form. Right. All that out of the way. Today we're going to talk about reviewing goals and a couple of things that are important to think about when you review your goals. So this is usually a time of the year where we sit down and we have a look at what we had set out to do the past season or past year, and we look at what we have achieved this past year or season. And sometimes we're like, yeah, tick, 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 tick. Well, actually, to be fair, it doesn't happen very often. I'm not sure that has ever happened.
I don't think I've sat on a call this year where anybody's done ticks all the way along. To be fair.
To be fair. But yeah, bearing that in mind, it's easy to be like, feel disappointed or whatever when you haven't achieved those goals, start to maybe doubt yourself or question yourself. And therefore we figured it's quite important to, bear those things that we're going to talk about today, bear that in mind when you do review your goals. And I think that actually what we just mentioned here, we concluded that actually most people don't achieve the goals that they have set. I think that is a first good thing to keep in mind. Most people do not achieve the goals they have set out to do. And I think, to be fair, the people that don't achieve the goals, that's because we've set them so far stretched out. We really put, as I like to refer to them, as stretch goals to really push ourselves to grow, which I think is a good thing. But then when we do that, of course, there is a big chance that we're not going to achieve it. But the fact that we didn't achieve the goal doesn't mean that we didn't achieve all that growth that we were hoping to achieve by setting those big goals. So it's important, I think, to look at the growth behind the goal rather than just the goal itself, if that makes sense.
100% makes sense. And I agree with everything you've said. I encourage everyone, including myself, to set an outcome goal. And I'm not all about outcome goals because they're about results and levels and heights, but I think we need one. We need something to aim for. You can't hit a missing target. I say that so many times. So we need to put something out there. There needs to be a why we're getting up like it is outside -5 and it's snowy and it's cold. Something has to drive you through this. So I encourage everyone to set that outcome goal. The trouble with only setting an outcome goal is we generally start judging ourselves on we've hit it or we've missed it. From there, hitting and missing, it becomes evidence. Either your ego takes a hit and you think you're the best person in the world and check you out, or it's evidence that you're not good enough. So it's evidence that you're moving forward and you're progressing and you're becoming the best version of yourself, which is awesome. But like we've just said, very rarely is this a straight line. It's not. Like that is true. Usually when we don't hit that outcome goal, and to be fair, I will hold my hands up, I didn't hit mine. I did in many ways, but the actual outcome goal, I did not. Then we go into that kind of, it's a loop of feeling stuck, judging ourselves, feel like we're going backwards, we're not making any progress, yada, yada, yada. So I think it's very important to have it, but then we need to break it down and set other goals from that outcome.
Yeah. I like to see them as North Stars, and I think
100%.
also it comes down to asking yourself why you set a goal. Like, why did you set that goal from and I think a lot of the time, and I agree with you, it's good to set an outcome goal because it gives direction, it gives that North Star, we know where we're going towards. But then think, why did you set that? If I think about myself, I tend to set those very, very far stretch goals for myself. And the reason why I do that is because I know that's when I grow the most. When I challenge myself the most, I also tend to grow the most. As I already said, that often means that I don't achieve them, but I have grown. Like if I take an example just to make it a little bit practical from this year, I spoke about in the podcast earlier this year. I think that I set a goal for myself to go to the World Championships for the 7-year-old event horses. Did I manage to get there? No, I didn't. But I missed out on just an inch, basically. Like I managed to get the qualification 1 month too late, basically, right? And so yes, did I hit the goal that I had set out? No, like the outcome goal. No, I didn't hit it, but I achieved 99% of what I had set out to go, like both in terms of outcomes, but also in terms of personal growth. Like I went out there and I rode those 3-star and I got my 7-year-old around like what a 3-star this year with a qualifying result. Like that is huge. But it's like you say, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, well, I didn't hit the goal, so now, you know, I'm shit, or that means I'm not good enough, or, you know, go down that negative spiral. Well, actually, I actually managed to achieve what I had set out to do, which was that, you know, personal growth.
And I think that's the thing. A lot of people, results are measured on paper, on what they think themselves, on what they think other people are going to think about them. But that does not always speak, well, it doesn't speak the whole truth, because there can be so much improvement in your mindset, your body, your actions, your behavior, reactions, all those kind of things can improve. But the outcome, if you look at dressage specifically, we have some really cool dressage clients and they've worked and they've trained all year round to get to these championships in December. The judge doesn't like your horse when it trots down the centre line. You can choose that to say you've failed, your whole year's work's failed because you deem what is a shitty score. But actually you went in there, you stayed present, you rode your test, you know, you had a great connection with your horse. All those things are huge progress. So very often, progress does not always speak the same language as results.
Yeah.
And we get to choose. I always say this is a choice. So you get to choose to the 62% when you believe you should have got 68% and your trainer believes you should have got that score and all the rest of it. So we can see that as, oh, well, I've wasted my time for a whole year and so wasted time and I've invested in my mindset for a year and it's not any better. Or you get to choose. Let's choose how you measure your progress, just like you did exactly that. Did you get it in the date that you really wanted it? No, but you still got there. So therefore, it is a success.
Yeah.
So I think you really have to be clear on results and progress. They are two very, very different things.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And oftentimes we see those things as being the same thing. Like, and I've spoken to so many people where they're like, yeah, well, if I get that result, I know I'm progressing. I was like, yeah, but could it be potentially that you're progressing even when you're not getting the result? And the other way around, could it be that you're getting the result and that you actually haven't progressed, but you just quote unquote got lucky? And I think, you know, speaking of our sport, it's so easy to, you know, I can put my head up and say like, several times I've gotten a dressage score that I, you know, according to myself, didn't necessarily deserve. You know, you just kind of got lucky. The judges had just had lunch, and you know they were a little bit snoozy, and they were like, "Oh yeah, whatever, looks good." They missed something, you know. And in that sense, I think results is a very dangerous thing to rely on to measure yourself against.
Yeah.
Whether, you know, you're gonna take that as a right of saying, yes, like it can be a sign of progress, but not necessarily.
Yeah, 100%. And it's like you're saying, you can say, I didn't qualify, or you can ask yourself how you responded in every single one of those competitions to get to your qualifying result. And you can choose to say, oh, it wasn't within the time. Well, that's your framework. Okay, that's your choice. Or we can take a more positive spin on it and say, I did get it. And actually, through all the little mistakes and screw-ups and whatever else I've made along the way, which annoyed us at the time, hand on heart, like I hold my hands up to this too, but you got there. You got there. And had you not had those mistakes, would you have got there so quickly? Well, who knows? But it's your filter. You get to choose, you know, it's your map of the world. You get to see. If you want to see everything negative in every single thing you do, you'll keep seeing more negative things. You'll keep seeing the more shitty mistakes, the more judgment on you, all those kind of things. Or you get to put on different coloured glasses, essentially, different map of the world, and you get to measure your progress that way. Yeah.
So if I were to distill those like things to make it very like kind of structure, here my IT brain comes out. You know, if we were to distill those down to like, you know, we first said obviously most people most people don't achieve their goals, especially if you're setting stretch goals for yourself. And if you're one of those people that like to challenge yourself, that's the first thing I think people really need to take away. And the second thing is like what I'm hearing you say now is like the way you look at it, like the way you look at like quote unquote not achieving that goal. Like you can look at it very black and white and be like, okay, I didn't achieve the goals. Or you can look at it a bit more like, well, what did I actually achieve then? Like if I didn't get to the world championships, well, what did I actually achieve? Well, I actually got around at 3-star. Like that, you know. So it's a matter of how you choose to look at a situation. And then I think the third thing is also like realize that your progress is not equal to the result. It's not because you didn't get the result that you didn't achieve the progress behind it. So I think those are 3 things. Would you say there's something more in there, Lorna, that we kind of
No, I just think the answers you find are always the ones you're going to look for. So if you're looking for the positive and the true reflection and the answers to your training, you will find them. Even when the outcome on a piece of paper wasn't that you weren't in the top 10 or the top 20, or you didn't have a sub 30 dressage, or you had 2 fences down, or you had a run out. Well, you can look at all that and somebody else can look at your results and be like, oh, she had a shit competition. Or you can be like, okay, the horse was 2 tenths, I was 2 tenths, I was nervous, couldn't get my canter, lost him off the turn, got distracted on cross country, whatever that looks like. Those are your answers, not the number that is on the piece of paper.
Yeah.
Not she came last. Oh, she had 50 time faults cross country, whatever that looks like. That's not going to give you any answers. It's going to give you no answers whatsoever. And that is what's going to keep you stuck and afraid, actually, from the calls actually I've had with clients at the start of this year. That is what makes people afraid to set them again. Because in their mind, it's a failure. You've missed. Didn't get there. So if you didn't get there, what's the point in trying again? Well, we did that last year, so what's the point? Well, actually, that's not what I told you to do last year, so let's not do it again going into this year.
Yeah, it's almost like the goal behind the goal, like you said before. Like it's the why behind it. What was the reason that you actually set the goal for yourself, and go back to that.
Your own internal experience. Find your own why, not somebody else's why. And if your why is because you want to be successful and get in the top 10, I'd suggest that you need to find a deeper why than that. Because you've got, yes, you can train as hard as you can. You can set performance goals, you can set process goals, you can do all of that, but essentially the outcome is out of your control. You don't know who's in your class. You don't know who they train with. You don't know how much money they spent on horses. None of those things. The only person that you have any control over is yourself.
It's an interesting thing you mentioned there as well. I think it's also very useful because this is something I did as well. Check in with yourself when you had that, if you had that outcome goal and you haven't achieved it. Check in with yourself, like, well, what was the reason that you didn't achieve it then? Well, and was it something that was actually inside of your control? Because in the nature with horses, we know that there's such a big portion that actually isn't within our control, right? And I think oftentimes you could have done everything in your power to actually get there, but then the reason you didn't get there was actually something outside of your control. So like even if you gave like someone like you, Lorna, like always gives 150%, if 100% is the maximum that someone can give, you'll give 150, right? And then you still don't get there. And that's not because of something that you haven't done. It's because you've literally you haven't left one stone unturned, right? And still you don't get there. So I think it's good to check in and be like, well, was it actually something that was inside of my control? Or had I actually done everything I possibly could to achieve it?
And I think that's where process and performance goals are, they're ideal. If I look at my own review of the year, yes, it was a successful year, but I changed so much in the way, if I want to progress with that horse, I've talked about this in the podcast all day long, he is super strong. So my own trainer suggested that I went off to train with somebody else, like try and get him to listen a bit better, try and make him ride a bit forward. In that, I suddenly didn't have a strong horse that was dragging me into every fence anymore. So I had to step up and ride better. He lost a bit of confidence, probably I lost a bit of confidence. Our system kind of went a bit out of the way. We had a lot of shit trainings, we had a lot of good trainings, we had a lot of learnings, we had a lot of putting it together, we had a lot of it coming apart again. If I measure my success on, did I get to intermediate? No, I didn't, but I did intermediate novice and I got round my 2-star 13 seconds inside the time, which for a horse that has 20 time faults because it pulls like shit the whole time is nothing short of a miracle. How did I get there? Because I focused on all those process and performance goals. And I had to let go of the outcome. Like, I had to let it go and be like, this is not going to happen now. I know he's a really good horse. I'm aware of that. He's not an easy horse. And I'm going to have to let go of this outcome to really work on my process and my own skills, to everything that's in my control this season, to be able, that they say what do they say? The more you fight in training, the less you bleed in war. And I believe that's what happened last year. Like, I really had to fight. Like, I did have to fight at the end of the season to get it through, and it had fallen apart, and I showed up at competitions and I was like, what the hell am I doing? Like, how am I ever going to do this? And somehow the resilience in my mindset pulled it through. He jumped double clear. I'm like, I don't know how the hell I've done this, because 2 days ago, I'm nearly crying because I feel like it's fallen apart, so much, but we've pushed through and we've done it. Was it perfect? It was far from perfect. It wasn't. But I feel like, I hope, and I will keep training, I'll keep working really hard, that this is the season where we shine for the war that essentially we fought last year.
I love that.
But I had to let it go. I had to hold my hands up. And that's not an easy thing for me, because I'm going to set these fecking goals and I am going to get these goals. But it wasn't really about the outcome. It was about the training. It was about the process. It was about getting better. And I'd say that was probably one of my biggest challenges last year, was to keep showing up and keep doing things when it felt pretty horrid, because we just kept changing so much all the time.
Yeah.
But that comes back to something that's in my control. Like, I can control my attitude. I can control how I show up to a point. Like, we're always going to have bits where we feel a bit down, when we feel like we've lost it or it's fallen apart. And I did have those days, hand on heart. But we got through it. And we've done, touch wood. Obviously, we're a bit stuck now with the weather and things. But I feel like we're making progress again.
Yeah,
but
I think that's such a...
Yeah, sorry. That outcome had to go. Like, it just had to go.
I think that's such a brilliant example of, like, choosing to look at it in a useful way, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, the outcome might not have happened, and as challenging as that is at that moment, to let that go, but then turn it around. But it's like, okay, well, what have we achieved? Well, I've actually achieved so much in terms of, like, mentally, with my horse, because I chose to let that go and focused on the basics. I'm now so much further, and you can really see what you have gained by letting the outcome go.
And that's not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing for most people, but if you're determined and you're driven and you really want to get somewhere, then it's not the easiest thing to say, hey, I'm not gonna.
It isn't.
Yeah, but that was outside of my control. We all know that eventing's a dangerous sport, and sometimes that would just be downright stupid when you're in one of those, your training is a bit in limbo and you're not quite sure what you're doing. That's a stupid move to try and do something, when you're both not on the same page and you're not firing on all cylinders, essentially.
Yeah, but it isn't always an easy choice to make. Yeah, I had a similar occurrence as well in the middle of the season. As I said, my outcome goal was to qualify for the World Championships, and I was like, well, I rode that first 3-star short. It was good. We were a little bit too slow, and then I was like, okay, well, we're just gonna keep on going. And I thought it was gonna be easy, and then I had that second one where I had like 2 runouts. I was like, okay, well, that's fine. I'm probably gonna have to step down here, and then I stepped down to 2-star, and then I got eliminated. I was like, shit, like, what now? And I knew like, if I don't ride the next 3-star competition that I have in mind, my chances to qualify are just going to be out the window. And then the logical thing, if I still really wanted to qualify, would have been to step into another 3-star and just keep on going. But there also I had to make that tough choice of being like, okay, yes, for my outcome, this is what I quote unquote should do. But there's also a process here. There's also a young horse here. It's me as a rider. And I made that choice of stepping back to 2-star, and we flew through it, and it was absolutely fine. Like, and I'm very sure that it's because we did that I was then at the end of the season able to get around that 3-star with a qualifying result. You never know. Like, no, you don't know what would have happened if you would have done like differently. But I'd like to think, looking back, indeed, that was the right choice to take, even if it meant that the outcome goal went out the window, and I focused more on the process. and building the horse up and building the, trust up, that because of that I managed to achieve other things. But it's easy when you're looking back afterwards and you're like, okay,
100%.
obviously that was the right choice to make. But it's not easy when you're in there in the middle of the season and you have to make that choice of like, am I still going for my outcome or am I going for the process?
And I think that's the thing as well. We all think that growth has to be visible. It has to be visible in our results, whether it's a level or an improvement in each phase, or if it's show jumping, whatever that looks like. It doesn't have to be visible to the outside world. And I think that is such a misconception. If we could all just let that go, if we could all just stop chasing proof and actually start building on our own capacity, like your outcome is eventually going to sit on the top. It might take way longer than you wanted to, but it will.
Yeah, I love that so much. And it goes back to what we said in the beginning as well, around that thing that progress, like results, isn't always a sign of progress. It can be when you start to get those like sub 30 dressage score that we all dream of, and you all of a sudden get one. That could be a sign that you're getting somewhere, but it isn't necessarily. Same with, like, I think show jumping even more so. Like, you can work so much on your show jumping, but if your horse is just having a day where it's a little bit off or it's a little bit too hectic, you can come up with 6 poles. It's happened. It's happened to me. And then it's easy to be like, okay, yeah, my show jumping is getting worse. Well, actually, the progress is there. The progress is happening. It's just not visible yet.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Right. Should we make an attempt at summarizing this? I've tried to take notes while we were both talking, and I've gotten to six main things, 6 things that are very important to think about when you review your goals at the end of the season. I'm just going to go through them, Laura, and if I've forgotten something, you can kind of chip it in there. Is that right?
Go for it. You go for it.
Okay, so first of all, think about that most people don't actually achieve their goals, especially if you're someone that's likes to challenge yourself, push yourself. So if you're reviewing your goals right now and you're like, oh, I didn't achieve it, but probably everyone else did, that is a false assumption that you're making. Most people that set challenging goal don't achieve them. The second thing is very important about like how you look at something. It's like, do you look at that goals of being the be all end all and very black and white, being like, okay, I didn't achieve the goals, that means I'm shit? Or do you say, well, I might not have achieved the goals, but let's look at what I have achieved. You might have gotten 99% there, and you should then give you credit for that 99% rather than being upset about that 1% that was missing. Sounds very simple when we talk about it like this, but I think a lot of people do exactly that. It's like, I didn't get there, I'm shit. And I'm, like you said, there's no point on setting that goal again because I didn't get it this year. Well, actually, it might just be 1% away from there. The third thing I wrote down was that progress doesn't always equal results. Like we just talked about, it could be a sign of progress, but it isn't necessarily. And progress a lot of the time isn't visible. Like we keep on chipping at it and we keep on chipping at it, and then it feels like we're moving backwards. But actually, just one day it just appears, and it's not like that success happened overnight. It happened by those 2 years of grit that you've put in. You just haven't seen the progress, and all of a sudden it's there and it appears. So it's coming. If you feel like you're just treading water, trust me, it's coming. The fourth thing is that it's really important to think about why you set a goal. Like, what was the reason you set that goals for yourself in the first place? What was the goal behind the goal? Like if you've set a stretch goal for yourself, like I often do, it's often that we want to push ourselves, we want to grow as a person. So even though you have not achieved the goals, did you achieve the growth that you had hoped to achieve with that? And then the fifth thing, ask yourself, if you haven't achieved it, was it actually within your control? Have you given it your all? Because in that case, it's not down to something that you could have done, right? It's you can still give yourself credit for being like, I actually gave my all to that. Still didn't happen, but that's just because of something outside of my control. So let's maybe look at next year how I can set a goal that's more within my control. And then the sixth thing, like be able to be flexible. If you like, it's all great and well to set a goal, but if at some point you feel like I'm sacrificing the progress and the growth of myself, growth of my horse to really hit this outcome goal, it's okay to make that choice and see like, okay, I'm focusing on the progress here because I'm building for the future.
Love it. Great summary.
Great summary. You happy with my left brain thinking?
Well done.
The IT your brain summed it up well. Did you feel like we missed something, Laura?
No, I think just be patient and be kind to yourself as well. You know, if the external picture is not changing as fast, and I relate this to my dressage actually, it's taken me a long time to get Alfie to sit and, you know, be lighter and be in better balance. And you can measure that as shit, that's not working out, it's taking too long, and yada, yada, yada. But it's not always about the external picture. Like, there's lots of internal things, there's lots of learnings, there's lots of actions, behaviors, like things that you have control over, which will eventually, there is no other way, it will change that whole external picture. But I think we could all just do with a little bit of trust and a little bit of patience, that knowing that it will work out. And like you say, it's easy to do this reflection now because the emotions out of it, like the dust has settled and we're kind of excited again to get going for the next season. But I'd encourage everyone to do one of these in the middle of the season, actually, just to stop and reevaluate and see where you actually are, and don't leave it till the end, and always come back to the things, your processes. And if it means that you have to step down, and I had a conversation actually the other day with somebody who, he did step down, and he's like, before I started working with you, I would never have done that, because, that's a sign we're going backwards from, jumping these huge classes to actually now, it was far from a small class, but what he deems as a small class, just for a bit of confidence and give the horse a bit of confidence and make it easy. And, not, like you say, those stretch goals are there for a reason, but they're at the top of our limits, they're at the top of our capabilities, and you can only keep stretching yourself out for so long before you kind of need to go back to being okay for a bit again. And that's okay. And you talked about that with Queenie, actually, about, jumping those big classes, and then let's just make it easy and kind of a bit, I'm not saying it's not fun, but like it's within your comfort zone just to go and have a bit of a fun before you start pulling and stretching again, because we can't live in that place all the time. It's too much.
That's actually, that's a very good one. Like, the fastest way forward sometimes is a step back.
But it is true. Like, why would you not want to give yourselves a good couple of spins where the two of you are like having the time of my life here, and it's fun, and it's, I don't have to be on top of my game. Like, we can go and just have a blast around, and then we can start reset and start pulling and pushing a bit harder again.
Yeah, 100%. And just to share that story, like, indeed, like, for those of you who haven't followed us on social media, like, I was actually just jumping some cross-country fences with Queenie this summer, even. Like, I dropped her really back to beginning eventing fences, and she was jumping like 110s, 115s, and we were just kind of spinning around 80-centimeter cross-country jumps. And and then we decided she was not going to be a cross-country horse, so we went back to show jumping, but also very, very slowly build back up again. Like, we were jumping 110s, we were jumping 115s, slowly up to 120s, and before then the year was finished, we jumped 135. But like you say, no one knows. No one can go back and say what would have done if we would have done it differently. But fact is, I can sit here now and say that quote unquote smaller fences that we took for us quite some time might just have been the reason we were able to step up to that height before the end of the year.
And again, that's your perception. You can see it as stepping down, or you can see it as being a process goal on the part to, on the way to the bigger goal. It's not stepping back, like a stepping down. It's such a, I don't know, it's just like a derogatory word. Like, oh my God, my ego doesn't like that because I stepped down. But like, that's your frame of it. Like, you can step down, or you can give yourself an easier time. Like, and your horse probably, you can only keep jumping those big fences for so long, and they're athletes as well. And you can only keep pushing for so long before they're like, well, like, give me a break from this. And then mentally, physically, their bodies, and then have a bit of a reset and build it back up again.
I love this.
Generally, it's people's egos that want them to keep jumping in those big classes only, and not have the flexibility. You talked about flexibility to go up and down and move around and do different stuff. Remember, it's
I love
measured,
that. Maybe we
measured
need to do
from the inside.
Maybe we need to do another episode where we talk about setting goals for the future. Righto. That's all we had for you for today. Anyway, an episode fully dedicated to things to think about. 6 things in particular to think about when you're reviewing your goals. We will put them all into one of our emails. So make sure you don't forget to sign up to our weekly mindset and performance hacks. We will list those 6 points up for you very neatly. And apart from that, we're just going to challenge you to start making strides in your mindset so you can truly make strides in your riding. And we will see you on the next Magical Monday.